Welcome back to another video with the Unspecialist. This time around we're going to be talking about the Texas abortion law and why it's actually a good thing for feminism and pro-choice activists. Now when I first heard the news, I was pretty much just going out about my day, and then I happened to log into Twitter, and as soon as I got in there I started to see all these infographics, pictures, videos, hashtags, and just general tweets about pro-life, pro-choice, abortion, draconian laws, men not making laws about women's bodies, oppression, and pretty much everything to do generally with the particular topic. So I decided, let me take a deeper dive and see exactly what's going on. And at that point, I came across a few articles, and while reading those, a few things stood out to me. In this section of the video, I'm going to be getting into the article and some key points that I've noted from it. If you already know what's going on and you really want to skip ahead to the true purpose of this video, which is the reasons why this is good for feminists and abortion activists, you can just skip right ahead to the next chapter. One of the first things you'll notice is that one side is painted as undeserving victims while the other is painted as tyrannical oppressors. But we'll get more into this as we go through the article. Let's take a look at it and break it down as we go along. On January 22nd, 1973, the US Supreme Court made the landmark decision that guaranteed women their right to terminate a pregnancy before viability, usually around the 24-week mark. That case set the precedent, Roe v. Wade, based on a challenge to Texas laws enshrined into law the rights of all women to an abortion. 48 years later, there is now one state where that law no longer stands: Texas. How did a nation that sees itself as a champion of women's rights get here, and where does it go next? Right away, we see the tone being set for the rest of the article. Also, don't you find it oddly symbolic that this is all happening in the state where it began? But anyway, let's find out what happened in Texas. On Wednesday, September 1st, 2021, a law in the southern US state banning abortion providers from carrying out terminations after fetal cardiac activity is detected, usually around 6 weeks into a pregnancy, came into force after the Supreme Court declined to intervene. The law makes no exceptions for rape or incest, forcing women to carry a pregnancy to term even under traumatic circumstances. The only exception that allows for an abortion to be obtained after 6 weeks is if a physician believes that a medical emergency exists, according to the language of the bill. What's more, the law will not be enforced by the state government, but rather policed by citizens who can sue abortion providers for alleged violations. The plaintiff will receive $10,000 from the accused if their case is successful. First introduced to the Texas House of Representatives and Senate in March, the Heartbeat Act, a name that some medical professions have said is intentionally misleading, was signed into law by Republican Governor Greg Abbott in May. However, it only came into force after the Supreme Court declined to rule on an emergency request to block the bill filed by abortion providers. On Wednesday, the court's conservative majority issued a formal denial of the request, saying the law could not be blocked at this stage due to complex and novel issues, though it acknowledged that the clinics had raised serious questions regarding the constitutionality of the Texas law. Now, when I first heard about the story, I could have sworn that it was a total ban on abortion, or abortions themselves were outlawed. After reading the article, I was pretty surprised to see that it actually wasn't a total ban, just a ban at or after 6 weeks, which at face value made sense. And I can also see that the law has no exceptions for rape or incest, which we can reasonably conclude to be rare occurrences, because if they weren't, then Houston, we have a problem, and I guess you'd have to say that there's a pandemic of those deplorable acts. We can also see that the name of the bill, the Heartbeat Act, is called intentionally misleading, and I'd say the name or the title of the article also can be considered to be potentially or intentionally misleading, because it's described as an abortion ban when the truth is there isn't really a ban. But hey, let's move past that. seeing also right after that they ensured to name the Republican governor who did this. But let's move on and see why is this significant. Texas bans abortions at 6 weeks, one of the strictest laws in the US. The law prohibits abortion when a fetal heartbeat is detected, which is often before a woman knows she's pregnant. It took effect on September 1. Court orders had previously blocked similar 6-week bans from taking effect in 8 other states. Looking at the map, we can see which states tried to enact the similar 6-week bans but got blocked. And we can also see that all of Texas's neighboring states have either no limit or much more comfortable limits on abortion, which means that it would be possible for someone to circumvent the law by taking a trip to any one of those states to perform the procedure. I mean, if chicks are taking trips for BBLs, it only stands to reason that, you could take a trip to abort a baby. And something tells me there's some overlap between the BBL crowd and the abortion crowd. But hey, I might be reaching. I digress. What's happened in the Lone Star State is not the first attempt by conservative policymakers to shrink the time available for abortion. In fact, at least 12 other states have passed 6-week bans, but these were blocked from taking effect. Texas now has some of the most restrictive abortion laws in the US and in the world. Now, of course, the article has to mention that this is an attempt by conservative policymakers so that they can continue to play the conservative and liberal sides against each other. But isn't it ironic that the state where it all started now has, as the article describes, some of the most restrictive abortion laws in the US and the world? Anyway, the news has sent shockwaves around the world because it invalidates Roe v. Wade and is said to take the power away from pregnant people. Hold on. We were just talking about women and pregnant women. Now we're saying pregnant people. Anyways, and give it to vigilante, extreme language here, anti-abortion activists who determined to catch any violations of the law have set up websites encouraging tip-offs about alleged violations. Wow, CNN does pretty quick investigations. I mean, geez, how significant are these groups? What are their power? I mean, just mentioning them doesn't really mean much, but hey, let's assume for the sake of the article and the sake of the argument or the position that the article is trying to take that, hey, these groups are really influential and are gonna take massive vigilante action against persons seeking abortions. Continuing, the human cost is likely to be made even greater by the incredibly tight time frame which has been imposed. At just 6 weeks, many women don't even realize they're pregnant. Not from conception, but the beginning of the menstrual cycle. That's only enough time to have missed one period. As such, the ban is just about as close as anti-abortion activists can get to a total prohibition of abortion. It is hard to know exactly how many people will be affected. In 2020, according to Texas Health and Human Services, nearly 54,000 abortions were performed in the state. According to opponents of the law, up until the ban, 85% of abortions in Texas took place after 6 weeks. Although the article says that it's hard to know exactly how many people will be affected, I think we can safely assume that the number of abortions in 2021 will be pretty similar to 2020 without an extreme increase or extreme decrease. So therefore, the persons that be affected primarily will be those who fall within that 85% of abortions that took place after 6 weeks, and that 85% will be of a number very similar to 54,000. Continuing, speaking of those who would be most affected, journalist Shefali Luthra said people who sidestep the ban by accessing abortions in other states would be, and I quote, people who have the means, who are able to travel, who don't need childcare, who aren't necessarily marginalized by race, income, by immigration status, by all these factors, end quote. Well, of course we have to mention all these because those matter in intersectionality. Continuing again, of course, criminalizing abortions doesn't stop people from seeking them. Instead, Women who can't travel out of state will be forced to resort to clandestine abortions, putting their health and safety at risk. According to the World Health Organization, up to 13.2% of annual maternal deaths are due to unsafe abortions, and Texas might risk adding to that statistic. I think at this point we have a good gist of what's going on, so let's get right into the reasons why this is a good thing for feminists and abortion activists. So, given everything that I've read in mainstream media, social media, and elsewhere, here are the 3 reasons why I think this is actually a good thing for feminism and pro-choice activists. The first reason is that pro-life activists will see this as some sort of win and get comfortable. Essentially, them passing this law will be seen as some sort of great hard-fought victory, when in fact it was just a win in a specific battle, and they may be losing sight of the bigger war, proverbial war, that's currently occurring. Many will think that this will have some sort of knock-on effect where they could pass more laws in Texas, or possibly even spread the effects or the victories in this movement to other states, specifically red states. However, when you really look at it, this can be more seen as a Pyrrhic victory, and one where you could even say that it was gifted to them as opposed to the hard-fought victory that it may appear. And you'll notice that this could even be a setup for a later reversal, as I'll explain in the 2 subsequent reasons. The second reason is that feminists and pro-choice activists now have somewhere to direct their energies. It's much easier to fight when you know who your enemy is and exactly what they look like. In this case, Texas is going to be the punching bag for these groups, as well as the Republican senator who would have signed the bill into law in the first place. Now that there's a state that serves as the enemy, and the bill or law or movement, whatever you want to call it, now that it has a face in that Republican senator, it's going to be much easier for feminist and pro-choice activists to make concerted attempts and organized efforts to regain the lost ground. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see attempts at defamation of that particular senator, whether it's digging up his past to see things that he may have done, things that are deemed to be in violation of women's rights, or I don't know, something like sexual assault, or worse. We're gonna see something like that, and if not that, it's gonna be racism or something of that nature. Additionally, you're gonna see in the state of Texas specifically, there's gonna be a lot of persons in support of the pro-choice movement that try their best to attack the law on legal grounds, as we saw before it was passed. But now that it is passed, you're going to see a lot of efforts to maybe have it reversed in the courts. I don't know if there's an appeal tabled or so on, but there's definitely going to be something done on the legal side of things as well to attack or change the law. As the saying goes, necessity is the mother of invention, and this particular situation has created the need among pro-choice activists for there to be a battle to regain lost ground and defend women's rights. The third reason is that the move will polarize the debate and add more fuel to the fire, which will later be used to burn down the house. But let me address the polarization first. Whenever a topic or debate becomes polarized, those that have already chosen a side become more entrenched, and those that were sitting on the fence hop off the fence and join either side in the trenches. And for this particular situation, what we will see is that many persons who were on the fence will view the move as extreme and most likely decide to join the battle on the pro-choice side. This, just like the second reason, is going to add more fuel to the opposition, and that fuel is ultimately going to result in a movement or more significant push to create change. That push is ultimately going to result in the law being changed in future, or some sort of sanctions or penalties, punishments, or whatever the case may be for Texas specifically. I would be absolutely surprised if this doesn't happen in any form or fashion. Well, on specialists, by your logic, then more people should be joining the pro-life argument. Well, yeah, technically, by my logic, yes. Act like this, given that it's polarizing the debate, could easily lead to more persons joining the pro-life side. However, this is where my opinion stems from. Generally speaking, when it comes to negativity, we have a stronger reaction to that. So persons who are sitting on the fence and had their doubts will look at this as the government being oppressive or taking things a bit too far. The fact that they were sitting on the fence in the first place means that they were conflicted, and the sudden burst of negative emotions and negativity after the move will more than likely push them in the direction of those that seem to be affected or the victims in this particular case. And if you paid attention to the news articles, the social media, and the general propaganda surrounding the passing of the law itself, you'll see that all the push is to make those on the pro-choice side appear like victims, the pro-life side seem as oppressors, and for those sitting on the fence who do not necessarily have a strong position, I think it's more reasonable to conclude that they're gonna be pushed or fall on the pro-choice side of the fence. In my opinion, this is all theater, because you had the President of the United States calling the move an unprecedented assault on women's constitutional rights. Additionally, the Supreme Court declined to intervene, as well as a few other strange coincidences at the time of all of this happening. One most notably is that this move or announcement occurred when political division in the state of Texas could be seen at an all-time high. Whether it's due to the pandemic or gun laws or racism, this abortion situation is just another straw on the camel's back. The big question is, which straw is going to be the one to actually break the camel's back? I guess we have to wait and see. Additionally, it all looks like theater to me too, because it's relatively simple concerning the implications of the law itself. Yes, the ban is now up to 6 weeks, but if there is a pregnancy and you're pretty much certain that you don't want to keep it, 6 weeks could be seen by many as ample time to make that decision. I know there's going to be dissenting opinions saying most women don't know they're pregnant within 6 weeks. Well, if that happens to be the case, there's still the option to travel to any of the several states nearby Texas, which are going to be under $150, $100 to travel to have the abortion, where it's perfectly legal, sometimes with no time limit or a much more lenient limit in place. For the pro-life activists, don't count your eggs or your chickens, before the eggs hatch, because your eggs are about to be all broken in the coming wave of vitriol. As for the pro-choice activists, sharpen your semantic skills and bring your best arguments, because they're going to be needed in the upcoming battle. In my opinion, given the nature of American society and the direction where the US is headed and the wider world, I'd say the pro-choice side is going to win in the end. But hey, let's see. Additionally, given the current social and political climate, it's going to be much more difficult for those on the pro-life side to hold the line and actually maintain the ground that they think they've gained after this bill passing. So, like I said, ultimately, I think it's going to end in a resounding victory for the pro-choice side, because everything is pretty much trending towards their end. This just happened to be a blip along the timeline, and it may very well be an organized or orchestrated blip. Like I said, let's wait and see. If you disagree with my opinions or you have other predictions, let me know down in the comments. If you want to roast me, or I don't know, throw some sort of flame or hate for me being a bigot or not supporting your side or either side, or whatever the case is, if you got something positive or negative, just let me know down in the comments. It isn't going to bother me either way. Thanks for watching the video, and if you want to see more content in the future, be sure to like and subscribe. This is the Unspecialist saying, pro-life or pro-choice, you're all being led to the exact same destination. Peace.